Right, guys, so we have really reached the twilight zone. Now, I don't understand how one of the smartest men on Wall Street just sounds crazier every time he speaks to the media. Now, I am, of course, talking about Scott Bessent, the US Treasury head. Now, for over a month, he has been on a media tour defending Trump's tariff war. The US has imposed, or they are about to impose, a 104% tariff on Chinese goods, and somehow Bessent thinks that's going to be a victory. That China's escalation was a big mistake and Beijing is playing cards with a losing hand. Just listen to this mess.
President Trump has maximum negotiating leverage right here, right now. And I think it would be a mistake for anyone to think otherwise. And as I said, many of our trading partners, they have queued up and they have kept their cool. They have not escalated, and they will get priority in the queue. I think it was a big mistake, this Chinese escalation, because they're playing with a pair of twos. Traditionally, if you look at the history of the trade negotiations, we are the deficit country. So what do we lose by the Chinese raising tariffs on us? We export 1/5 to them of what they export to us. So that is a losing hand for them.
Now he sounds extremely nervous. I don't even think he believes the words that he's saying. And according to Bessent, the deficit country is the big winner. And because the US exports much less to China, Beijing will lose more. US tariffs are more impactful because Chinese exporters are more reliant on the US market. Now this is a big fallacy. By imposing tariffs on China that the US is more reliant on, US consumers are essentially screwed. Let's not get this twisted. The US imports a ton of goods from China. Now just last year, the US imported nearly $440 billion worth of goods from China, and that accounted for 13.4% of all US goods imports. Now that Trump is about to slap a 104% tariff on China, this will put a sticker shock across the entire United States. A lot of US grocery chains are stocked from Chinese suppliers. Over 70% of goods in Walmart comes from China. So it will be the everyday American, especially those with lower incomes, that will feel the pain. And if we take a closer look at the situation, many states in the US, especially those on the West Coast, will be in big trouble. Their cost of living is going to rise. 26% of Nevada's imports are from China, 25% for California, 21% for Washington DC, and New Mexico. So people living there are going to get an inflation shock really soon. How is that a win when the American consumer is already suffering from higher prices since 2020? 41% of all consumer electronics are from China, so just kiss goodbye to affordable smartphones and computers. Is the US consumer an important customer to China? Yes, they are. Obviously, they are. But are they critical enough for Beijing to cave to Trump? No, they are not. And here's the crazy part. Even Fox Business is starting to throw shade at the Trump White House. The way the tariffs are calculated is fundamentally wrong, and trade deficits doesn't always mean it's a bad thing. The US is buying cheaper goods to operate the productive parts of their economy.
Mr. Secretary, if you get your tax cuts, and I guess you're well on the way, you get your deregulation. These are all huge pro-growth items. Okay. We will grow. We, the United States, will grow faster than Japan. We will grow faster than almost anybody. Therefore, almost by definition, by growing faster than the rest of the world, we're always going to have a trade deficit. So I don't know why you'd want to use the trade deficit in a calculation for a reciprocal charge. I understand your point about non-tariff barriers. I get that. That's why I would have chosen a handful of countries, I don't know, maybe 10 or a dozen countries, and really carefully pinpointed it. But to apply this to the whole world on the basis of trade deficits, is that really the best in your judgment? You've been around a long time. You've looked at these. You've done analysis. Is that really where we should be at?
Well, look, Larry, the trade deficit, as you and Art know, is a result of three things. It's a result of the terms of trade, it's a result of our budget deficit, and it's the result of the level of the dollar.
It's crazy the level of justification Bessent has for the tariffs, but it tells us that this madness isn't going to stop. We are just hours away from Trump's brutal tariff on China, or maybe by the time this airs, the tariffs are already online. But let's get this serious. A 100% tariff means total decoupling. The White House has said they will have talks with over 70 countries now, but the biggest deal to be made is still with China. The US still believes that China's economy is heavily exposed to the United States. But how true is that? We covered yesterday how the US needs Chinese goods more than China needs imports from the US. But beyond that, China has been the primary exporter to most of the world, both developed and emerging. Now, from 2017 to 2023, countries have been growing their global imports, and the fastest growing nations, especially those in BRICS, are importing more from China. Almost all of Brazil and Indonesia's import increase comes from China. Even G7 countries like the UK are importing less from the world, but they are still growing imports from China. The emerging markets are where China is going to sell to into the future. These countries' economies are growing at 3 to 7% a year, while the US is about to contract in 2025. Beijing has spent the past 7 years diversifying their customer base. Yes, they would love to sell to Americans. Selling to the US consumer market might even yield them greater profits, but their economy won't collapse if the US punishes them. And let's say the US and China ends trade tomorrow. Will the Chinese economy fall and enter a recession? Now, the odds are very slim. This chart tells us Trump and Bessent they are making a very desperate gamble. China exported over $500 billion worth of stuff to the US in 2023, but accounted for just 2% of their total GDP. Last year, their economy grew by 5%, so no, Trump's trade war is not enough to push China into a recession. They will stand firm and fight to the bitter end. There are many countries that aren't dependent on the US for trade, and we can expect them to band together with China and continue business as usual. It will be the US that will get more isolated than ever before. Now, what's shocking about Trump's trade war are the people around him. His advisor, Peter Navarro, actually wanted a 25% flat tariff on every single country around the world, including Penguin Island. And imagine that instead of a 10% tax, Trump would impose a 25% across the board tax on imports on every single country. And this shows us the level of thinking that's happening in the White House today. But it's very dangerous listening to Navarro. He is a trade hawk, but still insists that the US economy won't collapse as a result of this trade action. This is very wild.
When do you think the market might turn around?
It's finding a bottom now. But here's the thing. It's going to shift over, and it's going to be companies in the S&P 500 who are the first to produce here. Those are the ones going to lead the recovery. And it's going to happen. Dow 50,000, I guarantee that. And I guarantee no recession, okay? Why? Because when we pass the biggest, broadest tax cut in history within a matter of months, that's going to be a great stimulus. There's not going to be any inflation. We've already had a significant drop, a huge drop in oil prices, Laura.
Do you hear that? The US government has guaranteed there will be no recession. Dow 50,000 and zero inflation is coming. This is voodoo economics at its finest. And this guy really makes Yellen and Scott Bessent look like geniuses. He's making all those claims while the market just had another bloodbath yesterday. Just what is going on here? Across Wall Street itself, the sentiment is extremely bearish. And these are the spin doctors of the world. Wall Street always wants to sell a nice story, but even they themselves can't deny the truth any longer. Goldman is warning of a bear market coming, which frankly is already here. Even BlackRock has downgraded US stocks. The US equity markets is perhaps the most overpriced in the world today. So when Trump comes out with his wild statements and tariff plans, it's not a surprise when everything around us crashes. We can see how much wealth has been destroyed in just a matter of days. In just a week, the reciprocal tariffs has sent the S&P from 5,600 down to 5,000. And yesterday, we closed below that. So we are very near bear market territory, or we might already be in one. How much further can the markets crash? According to Goldman, the average decline can reach 30%. And from Trump's announcements, we are down by only 12 or 13%. so there could be at least another 10% downside to go. These are the consequences of voodoo economics. The stock market is reduced to one big casino with bright flashing lights from Trump's headlines. But we know things are really bad when even BlackRock is saying that Trump is making a mistake. Now, this is the same company, the same person who wants to buy Chinese ports in the Panama Canal. So he has every incentive to paint a rosy picture of the US economy to make Trump happy. But he's doing the exact opposite, which means consumer demand is dangerously low. By imposing tariffs, especially at a crazy rate on China, Trump is going to crush everything that's left. The tariff increases, especially above 100%, sounds more and more like a sanction. And if this goes live, we can expect the Chinese to strike back. They will also cut away their supply of US imports with maybe a 100% tariff as well. And that would destroy a ton of American jobs and many people's livelihoods. Former Treasury head Lawrence Summers is warning of massive layoffs coming. The US is headed towards a recession with 2 million Americans about to lose their jobs. Why? It's directly due to the tariff increases that's coming. Households across the country would lose at least $5,000 a family or more annually. And is this fear mongering or just telling the truth as it is? His follow-up statement is even more dire. He said the current tariffs are on par with the ones that made the Depression worse. Trump has a fascination with tariffs, and because he's using his emergency powers, Congress can't stop him, so he can go pedal to the metal. But a Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act gives us an idea of how bad things can become in history. In 1930, the US raised tariffs on over 20,000 imported goods to protect domestic industries. Now back then, that's a lot of products being protected or punished. As a result, other countries retaliated by raising their own set of tariffs. World trade collapsed and global exports fell by up to 50%. So companies and exporters basically had their business cut up by at least half. US farmers and exporters got crushed because no one wanted American products as well. And in today's climate, you don't even need a tariff hit back. People could simply boycott American products. So we are in the danger zone today. There's no two ways about it. However, the rhetoric from the Trump administration is actually escalating. They actually believe they could win this confrontation against the world and especially against China.
I believe that China will be forced very soon to come to the table for the simple reason that China's economy is completely dependent on its exports to the United States and to the West. China has built its entire industrial strategy since its entrance into the World Trade Organization on being able to sell highly subsidized, currency-manipulated, dumped goods into U.S. markets. It is an industrial strategy from China to product dump strategically to take out American steel, to take out American aluminum, to take out core American defense industries and defense needs so that we're reliant on China. And what's happening here is that China is now discovering for the first time that they have met an American president who is not going to be intimidated, who's not going to be bullied, who's not going to be coerced, who's going to stand up for our essential security needs.
So we are on a serious collision course. Neither China or Trump can back down at this point in time. Beijing has said they will fight to the bitter end. And as we said in our previous videos, they have the money and the fiscal room to maneuver around this crisis. Trump also can't back down. He ran on bringing back industry to the Rust Belt. That's what got him into office. If he backs down now, this would be seen as a betrayal to his core voter base. And frankly, his own ego can't take the idea of a loss. So hang tight guys, because we are headed towards a horrific storm. Maybe there's an off-ramp somewhere, but I just don't see it. But let me know what you think. Will Trump back down? And how will China retaliate to the coming 100% tariff? Let me know in the comments below. Stay safe. Be sure to smash the like button and subscribe as we navigate through these insane times.